Hello and welcome to today's lesson. I'm your hard-working but indefatigable teacher, Mr. Burton. You will need to watch this video and take notes as you go. You may need to watch certain parts of the video each time to ensure complete understanding. This is your homework and I will check your notes tomorrow before we get started. I hope you learned something.
Okay, hello and welcome to our last installment in elasticities. This time we're looking at income elasticity of demand. Now we know from our demand topic that a change in income will affect demand. It will shift the demand curve. An increase in income, if the good is a normal good, will increase demand. Income elasticity of demand will tell us by how much, how responsive that change in demand is to a change in income. And occasionally we will see that an increase in income will actually decrease demand if the good is inferior. And again, income elasticity of demand will tell us by how much. So income elasticity of demand will tell us whether a good is a luxury, a necessity, or indeed an inferior good.
Income elasticity of demand is a measure of how consumer demand changes when income changes. The formula for income elasticity of demand is percent change in quantity demanded divided by percent change in income. Plotting income elasticity of demand on a graph where income is on the x-axis and quantity is on the y-axis will render a line that has a unique slope according to the type of good. For instance, luxury items have a positive income elasticity of demand. On the graph, a luxury goods curve will slope upward from left to right, meaning as income increases, demand for those types of good increases. The steeper the slope, the more income elastic the good is said to be. Conversely, goods described as inferior goods have a downward sloping curve. This means that as income increases, demand for those types of goods decreases. Examples of inferior goods are public transportation and canned goods. Finally, some goods are immune from demand changes due to changes in income. These types of goods have a curve that is flat, meaning demand stays the same as income rises. These are usually consumer staples that people buy no matter what their income. Examples include soap and toilet paper. Businesses use income elasticity of demand to forecast sales and plan production for their products.
Normal goods.
Normal good is any good or service that sees an increase in demand due to an increase in income. Normal, in this sense, does not refer to quality or type of product. Normal goods are defined by having an income elasticity of demand coefficient that is lower than 1, but still a positive number. The formula for calculating income elasticity of demand is percent change in quality demanded divided by percent change in income. While demand for normal goods will increase as income increases, the increase in demand will not be as large as the increase in income. Normal goods are the opposite of inferior goods.
Okay, normal goods. A change in income is going to change the demand curve. An increase in income will increase demand. A decrease in income will decrease the demand for a normal good. So income elasticity of demand, YED. An example here, consumer incomes increased by 10%. Consumer incomes increased by 10%. A luxury good like a fur coat will see a large demand change. A necessity good like electricity will see a small demand change. So consumer income increases, it's going to drive demand, increase demand for both of these products, but a luxury product, the demand is going to increase by a lot more, and we can measure the change in the responsiveness of the quantity demanded on the x-axis there. And inelastic demand, a less than proportional change in quantity demanded as income changes. Electricity. We need electricity, and we can use a little bit more. We can leave the lights running, we can a little bit more heating as incomes increase, but there's not a whole lot of electricity, a whole lot of extra electricity that we can use. It's a necessity, we need it, we use it. Now the value of income elasticity of demand is going to provide important information as to how much the quantity demanded of the good will change in response to increases or decreases in consumers' income. Inferior goods.
The term inferior good does not describe a lack of quality, but rather is an economic term used when discussing the elasticity of demand for a particular good or service. Income elasticity of demand is a measure of how consumer demand changes for a good or service when consumer income changes. As consumers' income increases, the demand for inferior goods decreases. Examples of inferior goods are public transportation and generic branded goods. Plotting income elasticity of demand for an inferior good on a graph where income is on the x-axis and quantity is on the y-axis will render a downward sloping curve. The steeper the slope, the more the demand will drop with even small increases in income. For instance, if Ramon received a $5 a week increase in pay, he might switch from a generic brand of toothpaste to Crest toothpaste. The toothpaste would be said to have a steeply sloping elasticity of demand curve, but the $5 a week increase will not cause Ramon to rip up his bus pass and buy a car. For that to happen, Ramon would need a much larger increase in his income. Therefore, the elasticity demand curve for public transportation is much flatter because it takes a large increase in income for demand to drop.
A great little explanation of inferior goods there. YED and inferior goods. Here we go, we've got an example of a consumer income again increasing by 10%. And we see that fur coats, it's a normal good. There's a positive relationship between income and demand. Incomes increases, demand increases. Whereas the demand for instant coffee, consumer increases by 10%. Everybody likes real coffee, much better than instant coffee. So as soon as consumers' incomes start to rise, they switch away from instant coffee and start purchasing real coffee instead. So consumer incomes increasing by 10%, we'll see a decrease in demand for instant coffee. And we know it's an inferior good because there is an inverse relationship between income and demand. So as income increases, which is positive, demand decreases, which is negative. As income decreases, demand increases. Calculating our income elasticity of demand values. Very similar to what we've seen before, it's percentage change in the quantity demanded of X over the percentage change in income. So Q on top again and change in income on the bottom. So the queen is always on top. Q always on top. Quantity demanded above change in income. For example, income decreases by 10% and the quantity demanded for good X increases by 5.5%. Again, just like cross elasticity of demand, but not like price elasticity of demand, our negative and positive values are very important. So if income decreases, that's a negative, and if quantity demanded increases, that's a positive. So we have quantity demanded on top, that's a positive change. A 5.5% increase, we'll divide that out by the negative change, the decrease, decreasing by negative 10%. Divide it out and we have our YED coefficient of negative 0.55. We'll get to what that means in a second. Now again, our formula is based on percentages. So if we're just giving numeric information in our question, we are going to need to go away and convert that into percentages ourselves. So if consumer income decreases from 10,000 to 9,000 and the quantity demanded for good X decreases from 1,000 units to 880, how do we work it out? How do we determine the value of our YED? Change in income, remember our formula, new minus original divided by original. The original quantity demanded was 10,000. Original consumer income was $10,000. It's decreased now, so that's a new one, $9,000. We've divided out by the original $10,000. The change in income, 10%. Change in quantity demanded, similar fashion to calculating percentage change. New minus original divided by the original. Now if we come out with our percentages, then we can take our percentages, quantity demanded on top, income on the bottom, divide that out, negative 12 divided by negative 10, and we'll get a positive coefficient there, positive 1.2. What does it mean? Okay, how to interpret our income elasticity of demand values. So if our value is between 0 and 1, it's greater than 0 but less than 1, then we can say that our goods are income inelastic. They're normal goods and they're necessities. So what this means is that the change in quantity demanded is relatively unresponsive to changes in income. So the change in income is going to be greater than the change in quantity demanded. For example, if income increases by 10% and quantity demanded just increases by 2%, we know we're talking about a necessity. It's a normal good, it's a necessity, but it's income inelastic. Now if our YED is greater than 1, now we're talking elastic, income elastic. Again, they're normal goods, and this time we know that they're luxuries. And here the change in quantity demanded is relatively responsive to changes in income. So the change in income is going to be smaller than the change in quantity demanded. So if income increases by 10%, for example, quantity demanded increases by 14%, we know we're talking about a luxury good. And if YED is below 0, this means it's negative. If it's a negative value, we're talking about an inferior good. And the change in quantity demanded is negatively related to changes in income. So if income goes up by 10%, then quantity demanded is going to be decreased by some amount. And if income decreases, then the quantity demanded is going to increase. An inferior good. So the value of our coefficient is important, and our negatives and positives are very important. Interpreting our YEDs. Income elasticity of demand examines the relationship between income and how much good consumers will purchase, so the quantity demanded. As the level of income increases, consumer spending on luxury goods increases at a fast rate. We've got a steep curve here. So as income increases, people can afford to substitute for expensive, high quality and prestigious goods. Not so for necessity goods. Now, consumer spending and level of income are related somewhat, especially in the early stages. So at low levels of income, consumer spending on necessity goods increases quickly. But after we hit a certain level of income, then that spending tends to level out. Necessity goods, people don't spend much extra money on these once they've consumed a certain amount. There's only so much lighting or heating or air conditioning that a home needs. And our very funny looking inferior goods, level of income increases, consumer spending on these types of goods decreases. Right. People are switching away and purchasing other goods that they prefer to buy as their incomes increase.